investigators, Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy with episode 273 of Spy Curious. The last few weeks we've been talking about gaps in knowledge, skill, training, information and attitude in the VWA that Evel Knievel couldn't jump over and have resulted in those involved being transferred to the WorkSafe Victoria subantarctic headquarters where they're in charge of poultry and cannot access any form of email for communications or phone. So we're going to be looking today at what it is called when the police or the courts see people going along with fraud. So there's a name for it. So you know when you hear it, you can avoid it. We're also going to recap over some of those issues where the VWA wanted to funnel their investigators into an industry association that had an association with an RTO where the person in charge of that organisation and a committee member of that association took photos without the knowledge or consent of inspectors at the councils in Queensland and then posted them on social media. And if you're the lady with the tattoo on your right foot, I don't think you're ever going to have to work again once you find out about it and lawyer up and engage the Toowoomba City Council in regards to that matter. So we're going to recap all those things today and have a look at it. So it's the knowledge, skill, information, training and attitude gap and basically the funneling of people into it. We're also going to recap on some of the issues around locating subjects as that came up this week in one of our various social media accounts. So we'll have a look at that. A reminder too that Ambulance Victoria was exposed last week as a state government department where $3.5 million worth of fraud was undertaken by some 6 people there who charged for overtime that they didn't do. So they've been given an opportunity to respond to those allegations. And I think with $3.5 million, they'll be able to afford a very good defence in what they're doing. Of course, IBAC will look at that and go, well, we're going to seize your superannuation and pay it back with that. But as you'll see here, IBAC have an association with the VWA's chosen funneled industry association where they speak. And I'm sure IBAC in their gift registry have recorded all those free breakfasts of scrambled eggs on toast and unlimited coffee because that's what they do. They check that sort of thing. So IBAC will be looking into this, but I wouldn't want to be at IBAC in 2024. So let's get on with it. I'll be back to tell you very soon about 2 worse cases of claims management corruption than the one we have exposed here. Now, if you're upset about what's been exposed here, this is the minister. You can get in touch with him and tell him all about what you've seen in relation to this program over the last 4 episodes. He'll only be too happy to look at that for you. All right, so here we go. Circumstances, they do a great job, and IBAC came the heavy on it. Now the boot's on the other foot because IBAC have cozied up with the industry association where the investigator in his classes for peak services was taking photos of people in the group from behind without their permission or consent. Peak services have a legal team for this sort of thing. And, you know, victim blaming was going on and they do not do anything about sexual harassment up there. It went on. The people that were victims of it don't even know, and IBAC has backed it by presenting at their associations, employing their staff, that sort of thing. It's a double standard from IBAC, and it's basically castrated their ability to operate in Victoria. So yeah, that's enough for me, Casey. Really, this time it's definitely your turn.
Okay. Well, I actually didn't have to work too hard for this tip today because it was given to me thanks to Maddie Moore, who's a regular watcher of the show. And this is something called GeoSpy AI. I had never heard of it before today, but I thought I would test it out, and it is very cool. So it is essentially a geo-int tool, so a geo-intelligence, so figuring out if you're looking at a specific picture, where this picture could possibly be. So I'm assuming that not only does it check the image against other images in their library to look at where it might be, but also it probably checks out some metadata and things like that. And this is, if you just type in GeoSpy AI, which is what I did into Google, it should come straight up. I was in Burleigh on the weekend, and that's a beautiful picture I took at, oh gosh, I think it was 5:30 in the morning when I was going for my beach walk, and chucked that in there, and it's come up country, Australia, state, Queensland, city, Gold Coast, and even gives you an explanation of what is in the photo. So the photo is taken from the beach. The skyline in the distance is the Surfers Paradise, which is a popular tourist destination in Queensland. The beach is likely located in Broadbeach, close but not quite, which is a suburb of the Gold Coast. I mean, that's amazing. Even though it's not quite Broadbeach, 20 minutes further south at Burleigh Heads, but it is still very, very good. So remember, when you are using tools like this, that sometimes you can get some false positives. You always have to look at the information that you have and see if you can verify it further. You wouldn't just go, oh yeah, that's Broadbeach, I'm going ahead there. So, and there's Maddie there. It also gives you a map location, so which is really fantastic. So someone take his mouse off of him. So I really liked that. I think it's a really handy tool. If you're not trained in geointelligence, or you just want to quickly put that in as a starting point, fantastic tool. As we all know, that we can't necessarily rely on tools like this, because either they go away because the person loses interest in that project, or they start off free, and then once they've got all their machine learning and things like that in place, it becomes quite expensive. So fantastic tool. Thank you, Maddie, so much for pointing that out. I really appreciate it. And I'll go back to, so GeoSpy AI. Throw that into Google and it'll come straight up. That's my OSINT tip of the week.
Oh. A rogue regulator that does go rogue. The police have an actual term for it, because they deal with them all the time. Now, I'm not talking about the Licensing Regulation Division here. I'm not talking about SLED. I'm talking about the equivalent of ICAC, or the CCC, that's IBAC in Victorian. So what they've done is they've gone and sort of like cozied up to an industry association that's got a committee member that's done the wrong thing, and this, they're just going ahead like it never happened. Over the years, we've discussed some quite interesting terminology in this program. We had the joke, that is where bent police officers manipulate the system to get away with whatever corruption they're doing, like 120 breaches of the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division conditions of approval. Or it might have been police in New South Wales doing something that involved ICAC or something like that. That's what the joke is. Now, a brick, as we saw in one of our previous episodes, is where police plant evidence. So basically, they're giving the suspect a brick. So today we're going to learn the actual police term for a regulator like IBAC that 100% enforces on innocent hard-work Victorians, public servants and police, and turns a blind eye to corruption and enabling it elsewhere. What is the term for that? I'm sure you could give it your best guess, but we'll ask an expert. Here's Megan to tell us what the term might be.
Just go with the flow.
No, it's not called going with the flow. No, that's totally not what it's called. So we're going to look at that term today and find out precisely what it is. So we've seen that last week how IBAC get involved in soft investigations, grab headlines, and they have booklets they give out telling everybody else how it should be done, and they get the press and all that sort of thing to grab headlines, do soft lady frauds in TAFEs and stuff like that. It's not really investigating Mr. Biggs when you've got soft stuff like that. They get $63 million. So what is it called? Was Megan? We've got to go with the flow, baby. No, Megan wasn't right. Maybe Leonardo might be right.
You got to ride with the tide, dude.
Leonardo is very, very close. So what the police call it when the regulatory authority is corrupt and turns a blind eye to that corruption is swimming with the tide. So that's what it's known as. So you have the joke, you got a brick. We've had other things as well in our vocabulary system here, but that is the internal police speak for it. It's a very difficult situation when you have one rule for one and other rules for everybody else. Now imagine a police officer pulling you over today and saying, oh, you're 5 kilometres over the speed limit, it's 60 kilometres an hour. And then tomorrow they pull you over and go, oh, you're 5 kilometres over the speed limit, it's 55 kilometres an hour. You can't do that. And that is what's being applied right now. It's confusing, it's unfair, it supports a power imbalance, which is not right, and it all involves sharing of images, one standard by IBAC in one place, and a completely blind eye to it in another area, regardless of the victims. And the victims don't even know it happened. But I tell you what, if their partners, their boyfriends, their husbands, significant others, fathers, whatever they find out about it, could be one hell of an occupational health and safety issue for the Toowoomba, Brisbane and Sunshine Coast City Councils, just because of the actions of one person. Can't be done.
Today I'm here to talk to you about the unit in the CPP 30619, Certificate 3 in Investigative Services, locate subjects. This is part of our commitment to the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division's requirement for us to do 24 hours of live training. And so today we're live and we are, g'day Renee, how you going? And we are looking at the really great fun subject of locate subjects. It is an expectation that you, as a licensed private investigator, will locate subjects. Now, what is a subject? A subject could be a person who owes money. A subject could be a person who witnessed something. Sorry, just got LinkedIn playing up on me in a live program, so keep going. This is live, great fun. LinkedIn's not working and it's going to interfere with what I can see on my screen. So anyway, the subject could be someone who witnessed an accident. They don't know that they've got someone looking for them. The accident could have happened while they were on holidays in Perth and they live in Brisbane. And you're a licensed private investigator in Queensland and you're engaged to find that person in Brisbane. Just last week, I spoke in our weekly episode 93, about FAI insurance and a matter where the last FAI insurance claim from 2001 was finished just last week. And that involved an infant child who was run over. Now, they have to wait till the child's 18 years of age before they can assess the damages and pay that person their compensation. So the subjects in those matters for the interviews, that sort of thing in relation to that, so they could calculate the loss of earnings or compensation, medical expenses, a whole range of different things, as well as pain and suffering and ongoing care and all. It's going to come back to the day of the accident. Now, the insured driver who is involved in that, you're going to be the person that has to get in contact with them and say, "Oh, g'day, I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. I'd like to make an appointment with you to come and take a statement from you in relation to the little kid you ran over 18 years ago." And if you say that, that's not going to go down real well. What are you going to say if the guy's second wife answers the phone? And you say, "I'd like to speak to Harry Jones, please." And she says, "What's it about?" And you go, "Oh, it's a confidential matter." "Well, I need to know what it's about. Why are you ringing up wanting to speak to my husband?" You are going to have an answer for that as an investigator, because he may not have even told his second wife that he had an accident involving a child 18 years ago, because at the accident scene, all the witnesses said, "Oh, look, that 2-year-old child just ran out in front of the car. It wasn't the driver's fault. He was doing the speed limit. There was cars parked on the side of the road. Didn't even see the kid coming. And yes, he hit the kid and knocked him over, and the kid was taken away in an ambulance, but certainly wasn't speeding." The police breath tested the person. And at the scene, they would have said to that person who was the driver of the insured vehicle, "That's okay, mate. It's not your fault. There's going to be no charges from us. You were doing the speed limit. Everything's okay from our end. That's it." And that's the last the guy ever heard about it. The really interesting thing, when you have to go and do a statement from a person who ran over a child 18 years ago or more, is they remember it like it happened yesterday. They know the car they had. They know the condition of the car, the mechanical condition of the car, who the mechanical repairers were when they last bought tyres. They remember all that, because it's one of those situations, you don't run over a kid every day. It's a once in a lifetime thing, and my word, you remember it. So our job is to go and take those historical statements like that. Now, that person used to live with his parents because he was a young 20-year-old studying at university, but now he's grown up with a family and he's living in Toowoomba, and we have to locate them. So not everything we do is a sinister search for someone who owes money, or someone who's linked to a bikie gang, or someone who's making threats to other people. Sometimes we're just looking for someone who doesn't know they're missing, and we're looking for them. A lot of people come into investigations and they say to me, "I'm going to do missing persons investigations." Well, that's great. If the family of the missing person are mega rich, they can afford that. But if they're a family who are struggling day by day, week by week, and their daughter or son goes missing, they haven't got the money to afford that. So you've got to really be realistic about missing persons and locating subjects. But it is really good fun. My number one warning to you is there are several occasions as a private investigator where you are taking a very high risk. Good day, Emma. Good to see you. Hope you're well. Have a good week, Emma. Great to see you watching. So those times when you're taking great risk as a private investigator are, number one, when you do marital and relationship investigations. That's your number one risk. Number two risk is locating subjects. And number three risk you have will be, believing someone that he hires you to locate a subject, because they might be looking for that person to get revenge on them. In America, people hire private investigators to find celebrities that they are obsessed with, and then they go and kill the celebrity. In New South Wales, probably 19 years ago, a private investigator was hired to find a man, and he was an ex-police officer. He got his police mate to look him up in the system, and the police mate told him where he was. So the ex-police officer told his client where this person was. And a week later, that person was shot dead on their front doorstep with a crossbow bolt by the criminals that were looking for him. So you must go to great lengths to check that when you're doing location of subjects, that you are being instructed by a lawyer, a corporation, an insurance company, or someone who's doing it legally. That's up to you to do your due diligence and make that check, because you don't want to do this and have that kind of thing on your conscience. As a TAFE teacher, over 30 years now, I have had 4 ladies in my classes, my extended classes that would go for 1 to 2 years, who have had their identities and their children's identities changed by the police because at work their husband got a serious knock on the head And up until that point, great, loving, caring husband and father. After that, very dangerous person affected by the injury and then got obsessed and wanted to kill them. So the police shifted them, relocated them, changed their names. So you don't want to be going and getting involved in the family reunion where it's not going to end well for 3 kids and mum. So be very careful about it. Now, that's all sad. That's all worrisome. Today, I'm going to show you how some of the techniques we use. We're going to go through OSINT. We're going to reflect on some of Casey's stuff previously, and I'll show you where you can go to reverse image searches and where you can get free searches and stuff like that. But if you're going to be a licensed private investigator, you can never be too big to do location of subjects. It's the expectation. You go and apply for a job somewhere, they're going to say, yeah, well, we're going to give you 5 or 6 workers' compensation common law claims, which are coming to court in 6 months' time. They're now 4 years old. We need you to find these people who worked at those workplaces and interview them. And you've got to do that. So you can never be too big. So the person I'm telling about in this story is a private investigator licensed. He is a loss adjuster qualified, and he is a lawyer. And this is one day when he had to locate a subject. It was a Matthew Jones witness locate. Okay, I've just done a John Smith witness locate, and it was excruciating. It really was difficult to do. Sorry, John Smith, but it's a hard thing to locate a John Smith. If you're the first name in the phone directory or the last name in the phone directory, you're easy to find. But if you're not falling into that category, it's very difficult. Now, the witness locate involved a courier driver who saw a motor vehicle accident on the Don Crichasso Channel Highway and at the Freycinet National Park bypass, that intersection. So the person with this job has got to locate that Matthew Jones. There he is. That's what files for investigators and loss adjusters are called. They are named after the person that's involved about it. I thought, I'm not having that. I don't want to do that. What's this other one in this other guy's box over here? So I picked it up and I looked at that, and it said Gary and Gail and Ebony, inappropriate conduct, internal dispute resolution. I thought, all righty, I'll have a look at this one. So I opened it up, and it said the Chief Constable of Police, the Deputy Premier, the General Manager of Office Administration, Ménage à Trois. And I thought, that sounds French. Must be an entree, probably a food poisoning claim. So I swapped, and I gave the other loss adjuster, Matthew Jones, and I got the dispute resolution one. And then I had to sit down and start making my appointments for the next week in the office. The other loss adjuster came out, picked up his file. He's now got Matthew Jones. And it's 12:30 in the afternoon on Friday. And he has got to, back then, there's no computers, there's no internet, there's nothing like that. He has now got to find Matthew Jones by going through the white pages and contacting every Jones in the white pages. Now, there's only 34 pages of Joneses. He's lucky he's got some information. This guy's a courier driver who saw an accident at the Don Crichasso Highway and Freycinet bypass on the corner. So he's got that information. Now he has to contact all of those Joneses. This is a qualified loss adjuster, qualified lawyer, and licensed private investigator. Now, it's really important what I just told you. He wasn't too big to do this witness locate. It wasn't beneath his dignity to do it. He does scoliosis claims today. He does asbestosis claims today. He's done 1,000 fatal accident claims. On this day, back in the day, he had to do this witness locate. Now, you can hear him from where I was at 12:30. And he'd be dialing these numbers, looking at the white page, going, oh, Mrs. Jones, my name's Bobby from Freemasons Loss Adjusting. I'm trying to contact Matthew Jones, who's a courier driver and saw an accident, Don Crichasso Channel and Freycinet intersection. And he'd say that to people and they go, oh, you sound like such a nice boy, I can't help you, or I don't know any Matthews. And he'd say, you're not related to him, you haven't got any friends that might know him. And he's doing his best to politely and professionally speak to everyone. Now, he spoke to a lot of people during the course of that afternoon, and I listened to every single phone call he made. And he made quite a few phone calls. He never got bored. He never got short-tempered. He didn't get impatient. What we did back in those days was every 6 minutes you'd fill in your invoice form because it went in 6-minute increments in the hour, and he'd have a little break after every 6 minutes to make sure he filled his invoice in. And he'd keep going. He'd have the white pages there very professionally, very persistently. Mr. Jones, thank you for answering. My name's Robbo from Loss Adjusters, and I'm looking for a courier driver named Matthew Jones who may have seen this and I may have seen that. He's not a relative? No, you don't know him? No. Do you know anyone else that knows him? That's how it went. Let's have a look at the video of how it all went.
Here he actually is introducing Lisa Carson and myself at the Australian Insurance Law Association conference in Hobart. He's on the phone, he's going, Brown, can you tell me, are you related to them? Do you know where I could find John Brown?
A few moments later.
John Brown, he was a courier. He had an unmarked courier vehicle, Freycinet.
1 hour later.
Accident between Freycinet and D'Entrecasteaux turnoff.
2 hours later.
John Brown, do you have anyone that would know him, any other relatives?
3 hours later.
Yeah, his name's John Brown. We're looking for John Brown, if you'd help me, please.
1 eternity later.
What, you know him? You know John Brown the courier? That's it, we have a winner. And he loudly exclaimed, I love my job as an investigator. And the whole office was there.
Well, actually, we were throwing things at him, but that doesn't matter. The important thing I'm trying to convey is not just beginners do locate subjects. People highly qualified, they locate subjects as well for the course of what they've got to do. So we all have to do it. That's really easy. If you go to the Australian Security Academy's YouTube page, and later on today or tomorrow, you have a look at episode number 94, down underneath 94 in the comments, a direct link to all those OSINT tips you saw Casey just give. And they were pretty good. So you've got a direct link to all those tips from at least 10 episodes of Spy Curious. And on your Moodle resources for locate subjects, you've got a full 1 hour training in that. Now, of course, OSINT isn't the only way we locate subjects. We go out and we do door knocks, and you'll see how to do door knocks of an area so you can locate people, how that has to relate back to the very important part of your notes, which is in our first series, number 87, for our Victorian live broadcast. So when you do a door knock, you must make notes of each door knock that you do. When you do OSINT, you must be a licensed private investigator to do that, and you must record everywhere you went and everything you did to find that information, so that it complies with the rules of evidence, and it's going to be admissible evidence if it's required by the client who you're working for and who's paying you to do it. They're not going to pay someone who thinks they're pretty good at locating people on Gumtree without a license, because that's worthless. You have the license, you have access to the resources and knowledge, use it. Go in there and download Casey's presentation. Go on to that YouTube channel and like the YouTube links down in the comments section that link to every one of Casey's presentations on Spy Curious. They're all really handy. AEC searches, Tracelab searches, a whole range, reverse searches. She talks about the finding missing and hacked emails and how to get those and finding out which ones work. That's all there for you for free. Okay, you don't have to do a thing. Now, as extra added value, this is really important. You go to your Australian Security Academy resources and you enter the Locate Subjects unit on your Moodle website. And what you do, there it is, your Locate Subjects unit, you scroll down through all your resources, you keep going, scroll through, it talks about field calls, door knocks, accountability. So that's checking out your clients and making sure that. So here we go, Australia's free public records. So you can go in here, hit the link and find all of Australia's free public records. It's in your learning materials. And because we're in Victoria for this series, okay, we'll go over to Victoria and we'll click on that. So what free public records are there in Victoria? Well, if you were baptised between 1836 and 1853, we've got a record of it and we can see who's been buried, court decisions and appeals, court records. These are all available for free in Victoria. So you can click on them and see where you can go. Now, you might have to sign up for some, you might have to pay for some. But these are resources where you might be able to find free information and free resources. So there's interesting stuff in there. There's politicians. Oh, here we go. We've got prostitutes. That's a pay site. Well, that makes sense. So politicians and prostitutes. If they had private investigators, it'd be great. It sounds like Kate McClintock's parade of prostitutes, private eyes and politicians in an ICAC inquiry. But look, people, they are free resources for you to use in your resources. Now, you keep a little folder on your desktop. You download and keep a copy of that for reference for 5 years into the future. Now, you might be in Victoria and you might need to get into free resources in New South Wales. Well, you go back to that list and you click on New South Wales. It's there. So all of those things cost nothing. Now, the other way private investigators find people is through the use of databases. The databases they use are basically marketing databases. So when someone goes and buys surf lifesaving tickets in win a house on the Gold Coast and $500,000 worth of gold bullion and 2 Teslas, when they buy that ticket, their information is sold by Surf Lifesaving to marketing databases who buy it. Now, there's quite a few different ones, and in one of those presentations, it's got the link to Casey's presentation on YouTube down in the comments section below it, talks about Detective Desk. And if you go back through some of our Friday Spy Curiouses, you'll see there's Casper and Global Data as well. Now, they're databases that have information that private investigation agencies subscribe to. They're legal. People want to give up their information, their address, contact number and date of birth when they buy that sort of stuff. That's what they do. So when you buy lottery tickets, something like that online, they sell it. They sell your information. Read the small print. You're being sold as soon as that happens and you go on that database that week. So that's how they do it. Private investigators do not have any access whatsoever to federal police databases, electricity company data. They do not have access to that. They do not have any access to government databases, Centrelink, child support, that sort of thing. The private investigators do not. Private investigators do not have access to police databases. No matter how much you are tempted, never ask another person who works in the tax office, who works in the police force, who works in Centrelink, or who works in the federal police to locate someone for you. No matter how desperate you are, do not do that. You will lose your private investigation license. You could even go to jail in some circumstances for that. The person who gave you the information, they will lose their job. They will be unemployable in the public service ever again. And you will have that on your conscience, as well as just being an idiot on your conscience when you've got all those free resources, you've got all those OSINT techniques, and you've got your door knocking ability to go out and knock on people's doors and ask them, Joe Smith, who used to live here, do you know where he is? We've got to do that. Private investigation isn't all just sitting on a laptop in your air-conditioned office. As one of our great instructors, Peter Spence, used to say, investigation is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. Your inspiration, when you look at your instructions to locate a subject, is got to go like this. It's a 3-step process. What have I been given? I've been given a person's name. I've been given a person's last known address. I've been given a person's last known contact phone number. You got to think, what else might be available? Well, I could jump on the internet and do an electronic white pages search. I could go to that little folder I saved from my Australian Security Academy course about free resources. I could bring up my office who subscribe to databases and get them to check. They're your options. And then your last thought in this matter, as I come towards my 30 minutes of instruction for the Victorian Police compliance with CPP 30619 in the unit, locate subjects, the last thing has got to be, what else can I get? You've looked at what's available. You've looked at what you've been given. Now you've just got to go out and get it. Every day, licensed investigators around Australia locate someone. Now, quite often, they don't owe any money. They don't even know they're being looked for. The accident could have happened 18 years ago and they've completely forgotten about it and moved on with their life. So it's interesting, it's good fun, and it's a real achievement when you do it. Now, what happens when your person you've got to locate is in a correctional facility? It's a CTP liability claim. They caused the accident. They're now serving time in imprisonment for that. And you have to interview them and get a statement from them. The cards fell your way and you've got to do that. Well, you ring up the correctional facility. You speak to the person in charge of that sort of thing. You arrange to speak to the person who's an inmate. You make an appointment to go and speak to them and get a statement from them in the correctional facility. And I have done that in excess of 24 times. And they give you a statement about what happened. And you're going to think to yourself, well, this guy's a crook. He's in jail. Yes, they're in jail. They made a mistake 5 years ago, 3 years, 6 months ago. They're serving their time for it. It's quite amazing. They really have no reason to lie to you. They're paying for what they did. They'll say, yeah, I pulled a bong and half a bottle of Johnny Walker and 6 UDLs of Bundy and Coke. Didn't have my headlights on. Was driving along the road, went smack bang into them through a red light. It was all my fault. And then you've got to go into detail. Who else was there? Who saw you drinking? How do we know that's all you had to drink? You're going to be asking a lot of questions. You're going to get a very, very lengthy 8-page statement in relation to it. But that person in there is paying for it. They have no reason to lie to you. They can't double jeopardy them for what they tell you in relation to an insurance claim. They know that. They certainly know that. And it mixes up their day by having someone else to talk to. So it's interesting. You'll locate people in other states. You'll locate people in other countries. You'll locate people who live in the same street. Enjoy it. It's great fun. And just like our eminently qualified loss adjuster, lawyer, and private investigator with his 150 phone calls, never be too big to go out and locate subjects. Enjoy your work, people. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. Thanks for watching.
We've got an interesting job, haven't we? That was a really, really informative locate subjects video. So I hope that sorts out what you can do and what you cannot do. Now, we're talking about really serious stuff. The invisible funnel that nobody wanted you to know about or find out about. That funnel nobody can see. Don't mention the war. Don't mention the funnel. And it involves the VWA funneling its staff into one industry association with no record of any meetings, no record of who paid for the lunch over those meetings and the beer and the wine and the taxi or the Uber to it. There's no records in existence. If they were, they'd be in the VWA's gift register. Now, I've been through it very thoroughly and I haven't found a lot of information in there. But I did get one. And basically it goes back to 1969 and the construction of Tullamarine Airport, where Inspector Simpson was there checking on site safety for the VWA. And during the course of his work, the demolition crew from Calibrian Demolitions of Victoria came up to him and said, look, Inspector Simpson, we've found a little kitten in the demolition of the old farm barn on the airfield where Tullamarine Airport's going to be. And Inspector Simpson said to him, guys, do you mind if I have that? It's going to be my girlfriend's birthday and I'd love to give her the little kitten. And he put it in the gift registry, which is the correct procedure then and now, although they don't use it as much now or at all to cover up what they've been doing. So he's put it in the gift register, but it was a little tom kitten, so a little male kitten, and obviously he must have given it to his girlfriend, but unfortunately he had to be put down. Not the kitten, Inspector Simpson, his wife found out about it. So it can have some negative impact when you do record things in gift registries, so be very wary of that too. So what are some of the other try-ons in claims fraud around Australia? Well, back in the day, the heady days of 1995 to 2000 with HIH insurance and CIC insurance and what was going on with them investigating every claim that ever happened. There was a lot of claims going out to a lot of investigation firms, and to get on the panel of that organisation, if you wanted to be a panel member in Queensland, an investigation agency supplying professional support services to the claims managers in charge of that, you had to basically supply sex workers. So I can't show you this because it's adult content. You have to supply sex workers to the claims managers of those organisations. Now, basically, that was the system back then. Now, of course, it all collapsed, it all fell over, it went broke, and the boss of it went to jail. He had nothing to do with the sex workers, they were the people that worked for him. All right, so that was going on in Queensland openly. In your face, just like the VWA, right? Just like that down there in Victoria where you have to join one industry association. That's it. No choice for any others. None. There was no process in selecting it. There was no checking of its background and its associations with dubious RTOs that had 120 licensed private investigation qualifications cancelled by the actual regulator in the same state where the VWA tripled their workload as a regulator for their mates in the industry association. So that's just as much in your face as it was in Queensland between 1995 and 2000, with you having to provide sex workers to get on the panel. What is the difference? Not a lot of difference. Why were they funneling? Because the intent was to make every investigator in Victoria eventually who did work cover claims become a member of the AIPI with no choice, no other alternative. the people that slogged their guts out at the ASIP for the last 25 years, totally ignored and shut down. No work cover no WorkSafe inspector was allowed to go to their meetings in 2019 onwards. But suddenly, out of the blue and with no record of it, it's okay for the AIPI. It's really, really sus. Now, the other one, the other claims management fraud, again, wasn't the VWA, right? This one, quite low key, quite in your face. And honestly, the people that came up with the scheme to funnel you into the AIPI, if you're a licensed private investigator down in Victoria, they are, like I say, they're operating now out of an igloo in the sub-Antarctic. If they've still got their job, they're gone. They've got no influence. The minister is hopping up and down, not as much as the CEO is, because they've got quite comfortable jobs, you know, and it's a $6 billion scheme. And, you know, they got rid of these people who are a far away, remote location because they tried it on and they got caught. It was too in your face and they failed and it stopped, right? The knowledge, skill, information training and attitude gaps are going to be addressed, all right? It's going to be addressed by the VWA. And like I say, those gaps are so big that Evel Knievel couldn't jump over them in his motorcycle heroic show from 1977. That's how big those gaps were and why it was so in your face. $6 billion scheme, they thought, we are not vulnerable. We can do anything we like. Doesn't matter. We won't get caught. We can funnel who we want, where we want. We've got $6 billion. We're a showcase government, state government department, and they are. But they heaped all that work on the one regulator to do the analysis of it years before and found it wanting, okay? There are approximately 1,600 licensed private investigators in Victoria. That's old information of a couple of years back now in 2022. May have changed 100 or so up or down, I don't know. You're watching episode 273. The other try-on was by lawyers on the panel in Queensland of WorkCover. Now, what the lawyers decided to do was, we have won a 5-year contract to allocate investigations legally to investigation agencies for workers' compensation, slip, trip and falls, lifting, hit by moving object, stress, fall from heights, back injuries, psychological injuries, whatever, okay? We've got a 5-year contract to do that. For every investigation we issue to the 8 appointed investigation firms, we're going to charge them a $75 allocation fee. Now, this is similar to what the VWA who have found out recently in the $145 bribes between Picker and ISTA, right? So it's a $75 allocation fee in Queensland to go along with the scheme. So just like the $145 bribe that has no benefit to the injured workers of Victoria, the $75 investigation allocation fee surcharge add-on had no benefit to the injured workers of Queensland when they tried that on. So therefore, the investigation agencies kicked up and those panel law firms were kicked off the workers' compensation scheme. And I think they were sort of like, left with nothing to do, so they had to go and work for electricity firms where they couldn't do any charges with add-on surcharges or stuff like that. So basically, that's 2 scandals on top of what the VWA have been doing this year down in Victoria that have happened in the past. Now, they're not all of them. There are others, okay? But the whole thing, and my whole point here is, if you're an investigator and someone tries to come up to you and say, you've got to join this industry association and there's no choice, something's wrong. There isn't a politician in Australia that's going to say the AIPI is better than the AISP. There's not. They're not going to say that. No way. Are they going to stick their neck out where 200 votes could win an election. Now, the AISP, okay, it hasn't got 200 members, but it's got the contacts to get 600 votes voting for the person who does the right thing and doesn't want them to pay $250 a year for an industry association that does nothing for them. And we'll put up the price next year to $8,000 a year membership because you have to join it. Not going to happen, not going to be funneled. It's fraud. Motive and opportunity in a $6 billion screen equals fraud. On Friday this week, people, I'm going to catch up with a few things we haven't done for the past few weeks as we've been busy with the VWA and what's been going on down there. And I hope you can join me for that. And we're going to look at some job vacancies and what's going on in the industry and some advice of a determined investigator in Victoria who has got himself work down there and how he did it. You'll hear all about that on Friday on Spy Curious. You've been watching episode 270. Thanks for watching. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. We're going out in our usual way.